Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Dave, thank you for the next slide. What are the necessary conditions for media storms? This work, as with most other great research, I think it's great, is done with a co-authored team. These are my teammates. And so let's start by talking about what are media storms and why do they matter. A media storm is defined as a sudden surge in news coverage at a very high level that needs to last for at least a week. So we quantitatively analyze whether or not a story is a media storm. And so why does this matter? Next slide. Thank you. Well, this matters because it doesn't go without saying what types of stories are going to become media storms. On this slide, I'm going to show you on our y-axis the number of US news stories about each of 3 natural disasters. And for each one, we're going to see how the news story played out over time from the start of the natural disaster. And the first natural disaster we see is Hurricane Katrina. And we see a classic media storm where when the storm, the literal storm, was not so big yet, the news coverage started out slow. It rose very suddenly to a big high level, and you can see that it lasted for several weeks before dying down. But by contrast, here are 2 other natural disasters that had a much greater fatality rate, right? But they did not become media storms. In each case, there was a small surge in attention, but at a much lower level, and they died out within the first week. And so this tells us right out of the gate that it's not enough for something to be sensational, for something to be objectively important to become a media storm. And so this matters because we then want to know what differentiates the type of stories that become media storms from those that don't. Taking a big step back, why do we get media storms? We get them because journalists and news outlets, they can't pay attention to all of the stories all at once. And so instead, they tend to fixate on whatever the hot story is at the moment, and they pay very little attention to the rest of the stories. Meanwhile, in other issue areas, information and events are building up, and when something hits a breaking point, they lurch to that new hot story. So then, in the aggregate, if you're looking at any issue area, like immigration or transportation or whatever, you see punctuated equilibria with low levels of coverage most of the time, interrupted by these surges, these punctuations that every once in a while are big enough to qualify as a media storm. Most news stories are not part of a media storm. 90% or so are just normal low-level stories. It's only 10% of news coverage that qualifies as a media storm, but it's those stories that make an outsized effect on us because those are the ones that really grab our attention and can change hearts and minds, get social awareness, and prompt politicians to take action. For example, on this chart, we're going to look at US news coverage again, but in this case to police use of deadly force. Now, police use of deadly force doesn't really change over time. Every year there are thousands of people in the United States killed by police. But what we see is a pattern of punctuated equilibrium where you see low levels of coverage and then all of a sudden there will be some event that becomes a media storm. We see, for example, Michael Brown in 2014 and of course George Floyd in 2020. And so we want to know what makes the media storm the kind of thing that can prompt social action and policy change around the country where so many police stations, for example, need to use body cameras now. And so we wanted to look at what are the necessary conditions for a media storm. And for that, we hired a talented army of very well-paid, well-fed undergraduate students who are not unionized, but very well-paid and well-fed. And we brainstormed a long list of all the media storms we could think of. And we just made it as long as possible, and then we quantitatively analyzed each of these items to make sure it was a media storm, and then we tried to find a parallel event, some event that on paper was the same kind of event that had the same characteristics, but it did not become a media storm. And this is very hard. This is why we paid them so well. It's because this is like the dog that didn't bark, right? This was a hard thing to do. But in most cases, we found a parallel event, and then we qualitatively analyzed, well, what are the differences between this media storm event and the non-media storm event to figure figure out what are the necessary conditions. And what we found is, we're going to borrow now from Smokey the Bear, who tells us that you need 3 ingredients to produce a fire. You need heat, but you also need fuel, and you need oxygen. You need all 3 of those things. And so in our analogy, in order for something to become a media storm, you need that sensationalism of that event. You need it to be sharp and focused and sensational and surprising, either a big event or a revealing of information. And you also need fuel. You need it to hit against an issue landscape that makes it resonate for the American people, so that journalists can talk about it in some way that allows them to hook into current political debates or policy issues that are already in the news, because it's then more accessible to the American public. But then third, you need those influencers. You need either celebrity influencers on social media, or you need politicians to make statements, or you need people to be out in the street protesting. You need some kind of attention outside the mainstream media that then allows the media to write about that attention, that helps to fan the flames and produce a media storm. So in short, it's not enough for an event to be sensational. It also has to hit at the right time against the right issue landscape, and it has to get attention from outside normal journalists to become a media storm. And there's a giraffe.
Everyone, Dr. Boydstun.
Hey.
Yeah, open to questions. Let's get as yes, you have a question.
Hi.
So when it comes to specifically like political influencers, I'm thinking about things like Pod Save America or like streamers like Hassan Piker. Where do sort of they fit into the landscape of influencer versus sort of reporter, those like non-traditional media sources that do reporting?
Yeah, it's a great question. So those are traditional journalists, and they're going to serve in this role as influencers if they do something that normal journalists can write about. So usually anything that happens on Pod Save America, journalists are not going to write about. But if there was, you know, like the Serial podcast, not Serial, but the other Serial. Yeah. So the Serial podcast, right, that created enough buzz around the various cases that they've done that allowed normal journalists to pay attention to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned that we're currently in a media storm right now. I think I know the answer, but could you clarify what you mean by that?
Well, so we're in some version of a media storm around the 2024 election, and we're gonna be in this series of like mini, you can think of it really like a fire, where there's a big blaze and then there are lots of little micro bursts of fire along the way. So it's just gonna be a firestorm between now and November. But it'll be interrupted by things like the tragic Georgia shooting, which interestingly has not, I think, become a media storm, at least not yet. I mean, people have heard about it, but it hasn't become a full-blown media storm, in part because our attention is so focused on the 2024 election. There's not enough oxygen to go around.